relevant due to a constant demand for food security by each individual person, especially in children. In 2020, this issue is especially significant as the number of people struggling to afford food continues to increase while the nation experiences the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the American Journal of Public Health, since the COVID-19 pandemic struck, food insecurity in U.S. households with children more than tripled from the already unacceptable 9.3% to 29.5%. Nearly a third of American households are currently in need of assistance to avoid starving. This distressing fact emphasizes the importance of being well informed on what is going on around the country. We hope that the data and evidence provided in our documentary will be eye-opening to viewers and provoke a want for change by those who see it. We will be discussing how many people are affected by hunger in America, where the numbers of food insecurity are highest in the country, how the current pandemic has affected these numbers, what our two interviewees have to say about working directly with the undernourished and impoverished, and how we should plan to make a change on this unrelenting issue.
President Trump's decision earlier today to break off talks on a COVID economic relief bill impacts millions of Americans who find it difficult to cover their basic needs. Nearly half of the 22 million jobs lost during the pandemic have not yet been recovered. Hunger, food insecurity, and need remain a constant. Stephanie Sy has the latest.
Judy, the most recent survey by the Census Bureau found that more than 18 million American adults said they sometimes or often didn't have enough to eat in the past week. A survey in August found up to 14% of adults with kids said their children were in that same boat. Food banks are stretched to the brink. Communities in the Gulf Coast have been seeing their share of all of this, a problem that is magnified during hurricane season. The latest storm, Hurricane Delta, is expected to make landfall by the weekend. Michael Ledger is the CEO of Feeding the Gulf Coast and joins me now. Michael, thank you so much for your time. Give us a sense of how long the lines have been at the food banks, how desperate the need you're seeing there on the Gulf Coast.
Yes, the need has exploded. We've seen over 50% increase in need. With COVID, it's put people in a very vulnerable position. We had 1 in 6 individuals and 1 in 4 children struggling with hunger, and we've seen that number now increase to 1 in 5 adults and 1 in 3 children. We just had a mega food pantry where we distributed approximately 90,000 pounds of food at a large football stadium. The distribution started at 9 o'clock. Cars were lining up at 5 a.m. The parking at a large football stadium is ample, and they filled every spot waiting in line for food. And we still turned cars away at the end of it.
Incredible. 1 in 3 children in the United States, food insecure. Mike, when you look at who is lining up at those events, what strikes you as most worrying? Are you seeing a lot of families with young children who are hungry?
Absolutely. Our child nutrition program has been working around the clock. As a matter of fact, right now, all 4 of our programs typically wouldn't be running concurrently, are running simultaneously right now. And 3 of those 4 in Alabama are running. We have kids in need impacted amazingly. You know, folks they have to pay the electric bill. It's either on or it's off. But when it comes to food, you might try to stretch your budget. And when you do that, of course, you leave yourself food insecure. And with schools being closed or kids unable to go to school, the need for supplemental nutrition has increased dramatically.
It now appears that the White House is not going to make a deal with Democrats on more coronavirus relief funding before the election, which could also tie up food assistance benefits. Michael, if Washington could see what you're seeing on the ground, what would they be doing?
I think if they were on the ground, they would see people impacted every day, those that weren't vulnerable because their jobs have been eliminated or they've been reduced the hours. If a restaurant's only working at 50% capacity on limited hours, of course, the parents aren't bringing home the paychecks they would have. You know, we have people that are in our lines, a gentleman named Terry, just the other day that came. He had 4 children, 4 girls, all under the age of 7, had lost a job due to COVID and did not know how he was going to feed them. When he left, he was teary-eyed and thanking us for making sure that he knew how he was going to put food on the table for his kids that week. I think when you tell stories like that to someone, they can feel the impact, and we certainly hope that legislators are aware of those situations, and we believe they are.
Michael, you're also in the midst of a historically active hurricane season with yet another hurricane heading your way this weekend. How is that affecting operations?
Yes, as we respond to COVID and now Sally, just 3 weeks out, having put out 18 million meals since COVID with 1.5 million meals for Sally. Our folks are stretched thin, have been working really hard. I'm so proud of the team. Obviously, we're even in a more vulnerable spot, and all those that were impacted by Sally find themselves even more vulnerable now. So we're going to be working around the clock to try to make sure that we're addressing the needs that arise as it pertains to hunger. With Delta bearing down on us, we hope to be ready and up for the challenge.
And I hope your team stays safe as you do this important work. Michael Ledger, CEO and President of Feeding the Gulf Coast, thank you.
Thank you.
Swenson, and our group interviewed a lady that works at the Salvation Army, and we asked her a few questions about food and hunger in the country and the region, and kind of what the problems are, the situation, and ways that we can help. So her first question was, how dependent are local and regional communities in the food banks? And she said they're very dependent, and in the region and locally, and about 200 and a little over 212 households they help out on normally. So it's kind of a big area of need. And how many people do you serve on a weekly and annual basis? So she said they serve about 172 people weekly, and then annually that comes out to about 3,232 people. Do you have an estimate on the amount of malnourished children and adults in the area of the food bank that she serves? And she said that's a difficult question in regards to malnourished, because not everyone that they serve is necessarily malnourished, but a lot are suffer from hunger. So it's not exactly the same, and they're not going to come out the same, but because of the nutritional value of the food. But she said a lot of it depends on the food choices that they do pick when they don't have access to the food bank. Another question was, how do you feel the climate and region that Grand Forks belongs affects the amount of people who struggle with food? And she said that the region is pretty beneficial because there's a lot of resources within the community that are able to help out with that. Another question, we got two more here. What kinds of foods do you guys supply the people that come to you? And a lot of them are non-perishables, which makes sense. Canned goods, vegetables, cereals, pastas and sauce for that, soups, canned fruits, canned meats, frozen meats when possible, and dairy. Those are a lot of the big ones that they serve. Last question is, how do you feel the current pandemic has affected hunger in the area and your services that you provide? She said, our food pantry has increased from an average of 130 boxes brought in to 200 plus boxes a month. So obviously it has had a big effect. You know, there's a lot of people that aren't able to work, and hunger has gone up during the pandemic, which makes sense. And yeah, so that's the end of our interview with her. Thank you.
We're here today with Jill Wilson, and would you like to explain to us what your specific job title is?
Yeah, so I'm a health services supervisor for the WIC program in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And so I supervise nutrition staff and breastfeeding peer counselors and office staff in the WIC program. My background is I'm a registered dietitian, I'm a board certified lactation consultant, and I have a master's degree in public health.
All right. So would you like to explain to us what the WIC program is and what that entails?
Yeah, so the WIC program is a Women, Infants, and Children Supplemental Nutrition Program. And so it is a nutrition and breastfeeding program, and we are designed to provide, we provide specific foods to eligible clients. We provide nutrition counseling to eligible clients. We provide referrals and breastfeeding support.
Okay. So what makes someone eligible to be a part of the WIC program?
Yeah, so we serve infants and children up to age 5. We serve pregnant women, and we serve postpartum women up to a year if they're breastfeeding. They need to be income eligible, so they need to be 185% poverty, and they need to live. Minnesota now has open boundaries. It used to be that you had to live in the county that you receive WIC from, but now you can receive it in any county or any city, basically.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see most people coming from that use the WIC program?
So we serve low-income clients, and we get referrals from doctors' offices. We get referrals from people in the community, public health. It's generally going to be lower income. We serve a pretty diverse population. In Minnesota, the greatest majority are African American. So kind of all walks of life. We also see, we see in all kinds of education level as well. Generally our WIC clients do have a lower education level, but we also have college students. We have married young couples applying for WIC, and pretty much any walk of life. So our clients are really diverse and have quite different backgrounds. So it's really important to kind of see where each one is at.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you seen an increase in the number of people using the WIC program since the start of the pandemic?
We saw a real big increase in March when the pandemic first started. So then we had a really high in Minnesota. It was the highest I think we've been. Since then, it's kind of tapered off, and I think that there were some barriers to getting WIC. I think even the riots in Minneapolis, people had a hard time getting to grocery stores, where we had fires and things like that. Now we're serving clients remotely, so they don't have to come in person, which is really nice. But in order to be served remotely, you have to send in proofs of income, proofs of identification. Some of our clients didn't have email, and they speak English isn't their first language. So there were some barriers in place for some of our clients. I think things are getting a little easier as students are having to learn to remotely, and so, but people do have. There is a disparity. People don't have equal access to internet and things like that. So it's kind of leveled off. We're hoping to see it increase again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then lastly, what are some easy food items that have a lot of nutritious value for people with low incomes to look for if they're able to go to a local grocery store?
Yeah, so I would say a great protein source for people would be beans. Dried peas and beans are going to be really inexpensive and a great protein source. You can stretch your money pretty far there. Brown rice, tuna. We do for WIC. We have a food package. It has to meet specific nutrients for our clients, and so. We also do things like peanut butter. Eggs are a really great source of protein that isn't typically very expensive. We've seen it gone up a little bit now, but that's a good source. And then for fruits and vegetables, with WIC now we're able to provide a voucher for cash value for fruits and vegetables, which is really nice. But people can make their dollar go farther by buying bulk fruits and vegetables. Buying the things that are on sale. Frozen tend to go a lot farther than fresh, and they don't lose much nutrients in the freezing process. So that is also a good way to go. So inexpensive protein sources, probably non-animal sources are going to be a good way to go. Yeah,
that's good to know. Thank you so much for giving us all this information.
You're welcome. You're welcome.